You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And thanks as always for making us your first listen. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. And right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet hits. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you for another episode. And on today's episode, we dive into, little list season flavor to it. I'm not going to lie. I'm already being triggered, drawn off sides a little bit, feeling entitled about my team and where the Red Raiders are being slotted in. We're going to try and maybe take a stab at figuring out what a norm or an expectation that could be reasonable actually is for Texas Tech as we prepare to see some of these conference predictions rolling out. Already got one to process that we'll consider sort of as a baseline, so we'll get to that in just a moment. I also want to touch on what is actually going on with Texas Tech right now, particularly a group of seniors that has gotten out of town to get a little closer together. Team building, chemistry building, bonding with the boys on the road. We'll explain in just a moment. But Chris, as for this build up to this 2025 season for Texas Tech, you and I have talked about, obviously, the uncertainty, not just with the Red Raiders, but really the Big 12 at large as to what is going to play out. And that makes it a little bit more difficult to try and make a guess at these things. But I wanted to discuss with you today sort of an expectation as to where we believe the Red Raiders will or should be slotted in. I'm sure you saw, like I did, some of this stuff begin to roll out, and recently was just a tad triggered, to use an industry term, by Phil Still's preseason Big 12 projections, which, by the way, three-way ties, 1-1-1, 4-4-4. I don't know if you can do that on a preseason projection list anyway, but just for those that didn't see it, it was Baylor, Utah, Iowa State slotted all with ones by their name, Arizona State, K-State, Texas Tech with fours by their name, Texas Christian, BYU, Cincinnati, Kansas. Who cares about the rest? You get the idea. So, Chris, let's use that as sort of a launching point into, I guess, just where we actually do expect to be and would deem appropriate when it comes to the Red Raiders this offseason or preseason.
Because when you saw this, I think you were troubled. You were bothered. It made you.
I was triggered.
Feelings. It gave you feelings. Yeah,
a little bit. Yeah.
This has been a bit all over the map here. I think between Lindy's and Athlon's and Phil Steele and just various writers, with On3 and the different platforms out there, I think I've seen 5 or 6 different teams picked to win this league, which is awesome, but it's also the problem with the league, or some people's problem with it, in that there is no-brainer, blue blood, whatever, but it's wildly entertaining, it's wildly competitive, and I don't know what I'm supposed to think on where you should fit. I think, okay, so we're talking Phil Steele's deal here. I've had Phil on a radio show before. Great guy. I think he works hard at it. He does take the time to try to talk to a lot of these head coaches for 30 minutes to an hour about their teams and all those things. Watches a lot, studies a lot. He's very professional, and you may not agree with it, but he's got reasoning for everything and all these different formulas and all that stuff. So when I see this, like the 3 1s and the 3 4s is kind of what we're, tie for first, a 3-way tie for first, and a 3-way tie for fourth. You could easily have changed those numbers and put the 3 4s and put a 1 by it, and then put the 3 1s and put a 4 by it, and nobody would blink. In other words, basically saying Texas Tech, Arizona State, and Kansas State are the 3 that should be tied for first. Which is probably how I would have thought I would fill it out based on what I feel like I know. And I think that's the This is the kind of thing too that if I was Joey, and this is he's seeing this. I mean, he talked to Phil Steele. He knows where he was picked and everything. This is the kind of thing though that I'd have plastered up everywhere. That's how my brain would work. I would love the fact that you were picked to be tied for fourth. Maybe it's me being soft, but I don't want to be picked to be the favorite. I don't want that. I don't want the burden that comes with that. And some would say, come on, man, Houston was picked to win basketball last year and they just rolled through it and won it. I get it. I don't know. Maybe my preferences, or maybe it's the PTSD that we have is being around this city and this program for the last 30 years. I don't mind being kind of, I don't know, finding any way that I was overlooked and pointing that out and kind of trying to motivate and all that stuff. But I think this is you're in the general consensus of the upper tier. So that's where you absolutely belong, in my opinion. It's just a matter of, how many tiers are there with that upper tier? Is there a top half? Is there, I mean, how much are we breaking that down? Are these groups of threes? Are these groups, is this a 5-team league and then everybody else? Is this a 7-team league and everybody else? Is this these two teams and then there's a second 5-team? I mean, I don't know. But I thought the same. When I saw it, I was like, okay, well, interesting.
I want to see where you maybe agree or disagree or feel similar or dissimilar to me from this standpoint, because it's maybe not so much that I disagree about where Texas Tech could be, but Baylor, Utah, Iowa State, that's the first crew. I think there are some in this league who deserve benefit of the doubt. Clearly, it's the team that was successful last year in Arizona State. I think Kansas State is a program historically that I would be typically willing to give the benefit of the doubt to. Baylor, Utah, I know Baylor finished stronger than they started. Utah, yeah, I got nothing on them. So at least not in this league, I guess. But, Chris, I think it's a little bit more so to where I, as a Tech fan, do feel like I get skepticism or a wait-and-see kind of attitude. So whenever it comes to what's been proven on the field most recently, a tip of the cap to Arizona State, fine with me in lieu of Texas Tech. K-State, maybe even Baylor, given a head-to-head result in the way they finished. I don't know. But when you're talking about an off-season assembly as far as the roster goes, did anybody pack a bigger punch than Texas Tech? And so if you're not in that, hey, been there, done that category, like an Arizona State or a K-State maybe is, to me, you absolutely have to be at the top of the very next category, because on paper, I don't know that the talent is comparable. Talent is not what will get you there alone. We all know that. So that's not to suggest that Texas Tech will have some parade through this schedule. They will not. I'm not fooling myself for a second. But and listen to me. What an idiot. I'm all entitled up in here. My preseason prediction. Look at me. Who am I? I need to go smack myself around a little bit after this show. But how do you see some of that similarly to what I'm describing, or maybe a little bit different? First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel, and summer sports are in full swing. Whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer, FanDuel's the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action, so why not make it a little more thrilling? And with FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. And if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet only $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet hits. Again, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. So open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started.
I think that no one can dispute that you pretty much touched every bit of your roster, every position group of your roster, except, I guess, maybe linebacker. I think that people predict things based on certain things. Phil Steele maybe has looked at these teams' schedules and they got a bit of a break. They maybe have a tougher path. Yeah. whatever. Some I think way more heavily in on the portal, and some don't. And even then, it's like, okay, are these productive pieces that came from the portal, or are these just potential pieces? Those are vastly different things. And then there's as you touch on it, there's the intangible of like, well, talent is great, but can you put it all together? Like what glues this together when adversity hits? Where is this thing trending? All that stuff. But when I see, like, I don't know specifically, but the questions I have when you look at these three teams, I'm just going to offer them up to you. Baylor had a really good finish last year. Now they didn't win their bowl game, and but they were really solid down the stretch. Sawyer Robertson really came on. He took over that. Yeah, that's a prime example on portal. Remember their quarterback that came from Toledo was going to be the next thing, Daquan Finn or whatever. Now what's he doing? Is he changing oil somewhere? Did he transfer out? But Sawyer Robertson took over, didn't give it back, and he got Tony Romo'd to Daquan Finn, and that's because I think Finn got a bag to be the guy, and then he kind of was the guy for just a bit, and then he got hurt, and away we go. Okay, so but Baylor, they have some questions. Matt Jones was a big time playmaker for them. I think people are still trying to figure out what Dave Aranda is, because it's either been really good or not so good, and it's kind of like lots of up and down. Because, I mean, midway through last year when they came to Lubbock, and we've touched on this show before, he was on the hot seat, and I think you got their best shot, and maybe that worked against you in that, because you got as good as they could have played all year. They played their best game in Lubbock, Texas, without a doubt. They blew up on you, and you were just kind of over there going, what just happened? With Utah, this is they will have one of the best offensive lines in the conference. I think that you could even translate that conversation over into one of the maybe 10 or 15 best offensive lines in the country. That goes a long way, because when you have a good offensive line, you can be bad at a lot of other stuff, but it masks a lot of deficiencies. But I would say this. Devin Dampier is their new fancy shiny toy at quarterback. He came from University of New Mexico, and he was a running threat and all those things. But this is also a player. This is what I'm wondering how many people are paying attention to this aspect. He completed 57% of his passes. He had a 1-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, 12-12. And the New Mexico Lobos were 5-7. And this is the guy that's now going to just move on in and win the Big 12. Then I would also offer up, I don't discount the running threat that he is and the athlete that he is and all that stuff. Who's he throwing to? That's a major question for I think Utah, because they were woeful on offense last year. Painful to watch. Just couldn't score. Now their defense is supposed to be pretty good. That is, we'll get into that maybe a future episode, but that's going to be one of your sneakiest games of the season that I think maybe 2 months ago we maybe didn't view it as much. And as it gets closer, I think that's going to be sneaky, tricky, all the things.
You got my attention. I really was sleeping on it. I got to be honest, for both teams, the significance for both teams. But you brought it up, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks ago, talking about, hey, Utah wants to restore a pulse, and they can do so against a team that's had all the offseason headlines. Hey, Tech wants to go on the road and prove that it's not just offseason headline time. So consider me sleeping no longer on the significance of that one, thanks to you.
Well, and I think they've typically been very difficult to beat up in Salt Lake.
Mm-hmm.
So that game will be interesting. 1, because it's the first conference game. 2, because of who it is. And I think, like in a deal like this, I can't say for certain, but does Kyle Whittingham getting some benefit of the doubt here? Maybe, and maybe he deserves it. I don't know. I guess we will find out. I'd love to just get past those guys and let everybody else worry about them. Iowa State, I have questions there because as much as I read about Rocco Becht and how good he's supposed to be, I think he's just okay. He's not bad, but he's not a world beater either. Maybe has a chance at a cup of coffee in the NFL. I would like to see what he does without his 2 NFL wideouts. It's a lot to replace.
Yeah.
And then they, while they've had just a turnstile of stud running backs there come through the years, last year was not one of those years. And like who's going to bail Rocco Becht out, or is he good enough to, go do his thing and make everybody around him better? I don't know if I'm ready to say that yet. So that would be my question there. And you don't play Iowa State, so they're not your problem. But you don't play Baylor either, so they're not your problem. Utah will be. But those will be the questions I would have. And again, you've got questions of your own, Taj Brooks replacement and new coordinators and all the things. But it is interesting that one of these teams was not very good at all in Utah last year, and then Baylor wasn't very good until they came to Lubbock, and then they just got on a run and really didn't give it back, and then lost the game to LSU down the stretch. But I think this just speaks to this is really normal to me, in that it's like spin the wheel on who you think is going to win the league. Somebody will end up being right, but it's like there's a clear group of teams that people are picking from, and I don't think you've become any kind of favorite by any means. I think you're in the conversation. I think Kansas State and Arizona State are really the two that I've seen the most, and I get it. I totally understand it. And those coaches deserve some benefit of the doubt as well. But I'm not certain about the other 3 here, although Aranda did win it, and Whittingham has won the Pac-12 a bunch of times, and then Iowa State, we all know the whole Matt Campbell thing. So it's interesting.
I think there's going to be some that are gun shy too, to invest in Texas Tech as a trendy preseason pick, because the last time they did, they were burned if they did decide to pick Texas Tech a couple of years ago. So, and I get that, but I'm just still shaken by the fact that I was going entitled mode right out of the gates. We deserve to be here. Yeah, I don't know. Is there a right answer? Is there a wrong answer? It's a preseason prediction, so probably not, but would love to hear from you guys how you feel out there in the YouTube.
So remember I mentioned to you about like the scheduling component here. Let me just throw this out at you. So Baylor, for example, between the beginning of their season and October the 4th, they will have played Auburn and SMU in the non-conference, one of which was a playoff team, supposed to be top 20 again. Auburn threw a bunch of money at their roster, and they're pissed and trying to get back on track. Okay, so those are the 2 non-conference games, and then 2 of their first 3 non-conference games, they play Arizona State, and then they play Kansas State. Now both of those games are in Waco, but these are 2 of the teams in this same group of teams that we're sitting here talking about. Neither one, like if Baylor were to win either one of those games, that's a big win. Agreed?
Okay. Oh yeah.
And then the one in between that is a trip to Stillwater, which everybody's going to gloss over Oklahoma State and be like, they're not any good anymore and all that stuff. But then, and even then after Kansas State, they go to TCU and play the Horned Frogs. So their schedule is front loaded. If they can survive that and like come out, pretty good, then look out. But they may not ever get out of the starting gate as far as the conference race goes. We'll see. Again, Tech doesn't see them, not our problem. But that's also part of what I wonder on, like when you predict something like this, are you looking at that? But obviously he must have felt like, dude, they don't play hardly. I mean, because they're the back end of this deal. Cincinnati, UCF, Arizona, and Houston are 4 of their last 5 games. All teams very low on what should be predicted. So anyway, that part is is interesting to me too, just because everybody's schedule's a bit different and you're seeing different teams and all those things. So anyway, I don't know.
Let's see what you got when you don't have that get right opportunity in Lubbock, Dave Aranda. Not going to be here to save your job this time, but you're going to be looking for it. And I'm actually thankful for that, I think, because it has been a painful experience a couple of times in the LBK, although you got some back in Waco.
In Waco.
Yep. Chris, before we get out of here, I wanted to check in with you on what was shaking with the Red Raiders here as we're making our way through the month of June. I noticed on social media, I think was it a group of seniors that were spending some time together in Arlington this week or over the weekend?
I don't know if Joey has done this every year. Maybe this is the first time they've actually said it aloud, or maybe this is the first year they've done it. I don't know, but I go back to, I'm going to tie this conversation into one of the very first press conferences he had. Maybe it was after, like maybe in January or late December or whatever, but it was the first time they really got to talk about a lot of the portal additions. Okay. And, and one of the things he talked about was, we've got all this done. We've got all these pieces. Now it's my job. It's Barron's job. It's the coordinator's job. It's the coach's job. It's Jacob Rodriguez's job to mesh this together. Kind of that intangible we were talking about earlier in this show. Yeah. Trying to take all this talent and get it aligned and get it playing together. Because a lot of your portal class are one and done guys. Not all of them, and that's why I liked your portal class so much, because a lot of this will pay dividends in the years to come. But a senior retreat, and this is strictly a bonding. I think this was like a day. I don't even know if it was an overnight deal, if it was just down and back or whatever. But I think it's pretty fascinating. You've played some spring stuff at the Star. I think that obviously the Big 12 Pro Day is at the Star. So there's some relationships there with not just Texas Tech and the Big 12, but they took these guys and gave them a tour of where the Cowboys set up shop every day. And it's an unbelievable facility. Like, what you've built in Lubbock is phenomenal. This is the professional version of that. The complex in Frisco is top notch. It's a hotel, the Omni Hotel hooked to it. There's the smaller version of the stadium where a lot of the Frisco high schools share it. It's a Cowboys practice facility. There's outdoor practice fields, giant cafeteria, meeting rooms. I mean, it's just this whole complex. It's awesome. There's all this stuff built around it. But bottom line is, pretty cool to take your seniors there and let them see, essentially, this is what you're working toward. This could be next step for you. And if it's not this complex, it's some complex out there. But this is just a step in the direction of bringing this whole thing together. I don't know, like I said, what all else they did, who all exactly went. Whether some seniors that had stuff going or couldn't go or showed up late, or I don't know, whatever. It doesn't matter. But because I think it did end with a dinner at Kenny Perry's house on Sunday night. So that was the full circle senior group, I think, going over to Coach Perry's house. I saw my man KP the night of Father's Day with his lovely bride, and we were at the same restaurant. He exited, and he rolled off in a Jeep with the top off, the doors down, the music blaring, and I'm like, that's my special teams coach right there, man. He's living that life, man. He was like feeling no pain, great personality, just like doing the thing. So I hope all the seniors got the Kenny Perry experience this past Sunday night to end their senior weekend or whatever it may be. But typically in those retreats too, you state goals. You do things to try to get to know each other. Maybe stuff like an outside of the setting of your normal stomping grounds, right? It's like, hey man, call it silly, call it meaningful, call it eye-opening, and I'm sure that some view it differently than others, but it really is. It's trying to, hey, let your guard down. Let's get to know each other. Let's see what we're all about here. And but this is, I think, one of those buttons that Joey's trying to push on the culture and goal-oriented season that they hope to have.
I got to tell you, you look at your crew of seniors, and there's so many guys you're going to be counting on, obviously, to be big impact guys for you, and some of them brand new faces that you're welcoming into the mix for the first time. I think I kind of just take for granted, the inherent difficulty in some of these things when it comes to in this transfer era or portal era, kind of the acclimation period. So these types of gatherings may be, more important or more valuable than they ever were before when you're seeing the cast of characters kind of change as frequently as it has. And in such key spots. I mean, there's always turnover in every era, on a roster, but it's usually not, your first 5 guys off the bus you're turning over. And sometimes that's kind of been the case, it's like the back end of the roster, but that's not really the case anymore, at least not for Tech.
No, there's some big pieces that went to the Star this weekend. I mean, like your entire starting defensive line, for example. I mean, like that starting safety, there's a receiver, there's some offensive linemen, and on it goes. A big time linebacker. These are portal guys and holdovers and all the things, right? But there's a lot of talent in your senior group that you hope to take you to where you've never been before.
Yeah, I don't know that I'd call you an old team necessarily, but it's kind of a conflicting feeling having new faces, but they're kind of old faces as far as college football goes. So in one way, that's sort of a hurdle to overcome, but in another way, it's a great thing that you're bringing so much experience and guys that have seen so many snaps, obviously, on this level, some even in this league, to your locker room to contribute this time around. Chris, enjoyed it as always, my man. We got a LOTT getaway maybe sometime. You just tell me where to head. Meet you down at Brian's Steaks off the interstate or something, wherever you want to go. The world is our oyster, and by world, I mean most of East Lubbock. So let's get together and chop that up. Chris, appreciate the time as always, man. Looking forward to the next one.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. We'll talk to everybody next time. Keep hope alive, people.
Yeah, and stick with us and come back because I got questions to ask Chris on an upcoming episode sometime this week. I could have swore after all this talk about big college football playoff plans, I saw somebody talking about returning to the drawing board. Could it be? We'll investigate on an upcoming episode. We're out of ideas all of a sudden at this point in time. Really? We'll discuss that on an upcoming episode this week. So looking forward to it and looking forward to being back with you out there. Get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. Thanks to the everydayers for always riding along, and appreciate the Matador Mob for being out there as well, including my man Reed, who is also a new father. We've got a new father among the Matador Monsters. So congratulations to Reed and family on that.
Yes,
one. And
absolutely.
Hoping you're already getting the little one signed up. There's no age requirement. You can have an account today. Reed, get the baby in the show notes. Find the link to a free 14-day trial. That's your direct line to Chris and myself with one-on-one text sent straight to your phone. And what other 2 people would you like to get a newborn hooked up with more immediately than Chris and myself? Some wisdom, some pearls, some advice, some lessons, and what not to do. It's all available. All right. Appreciate Chris. Appreciate you guys for being out there. As always, we hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.